Mary of Teck was Queen Consort of the United Kingdom and the British Dominions from 1910 to 1936. In addition, Mary was Empress Consort of India. She was married to British King George V and was the mother to Kings Edward VIII and George VI. By the end of her life, Mary had become a figure of strength and stability. She had become the unofficial matriarch of the British royal family. It comes to a surprise that Mary of Teck's family had only been minor members of the British royal family. This especially during a time in which royals only married royals. In fact, there were many who opposed the marriage of Mary and Prince George. Mary's father was Francis, the Duke of Teck. He was the result of a morganatic marriage and as such only held the style of Serene Highness. However, Mary at last was still a great-grandchild of British King George III, albeit through her mother's side. So in today's video, we will look at Mary's ancestors up until her great-grandparents. Mary's father was Francis, the Duke of Teck. He was born in 1837 in Essex, which is located in what is today Croatia. As his parents' marriage was morganatic, Francis had no succession rights to the Kingdom of Württemberg. However, he had little income and his family lived in a grace and favor apartment in Kensington Palace. Francis and his wife, however, lived beyond their means and over time accumulated debts. Later, he moved his family to continental Europe as the cost of living were cheaper across the Channel. They eventually returned to the UK in 1885. When Mary became engaged to Prince George, the then Duke of York, the family's finances increased. Francis died on January 21, 1900 at White Lodge. He is buried in the St. George's Chapel. Duke Alexander of Württemberg was born on September 9, 1804. He was the nephew of the then King of Württemberg. Through his mother's side of the family, he was a great-great-grandson of King George II of Great Britain. At a young age, he joined the army of Württemberg before changing to the Austrian army. In 1833, he was elevated to the rank of colonel. In 1835, he married Countess Claudine Rede von Kies-Rede. Claudine was born on the family estate Rede Castle on September 21, 1812. Back then, her birthplace belonged to the Kingdom of Hungary. Today, it is located in Romania. There is not much more known about Claudine's upbringing. The family's most notable member was Ferenc Rede, who was the Prince of Transylvania in the 1600s. The marriage of Alexander and Claudine was declared morganatic. Although Claudine was at last a countess, this title was seen as a non-royal rank in German law. As such, Alexander and their children were excluded from the line of succession to the throne of Württemberg. Shortly after their wedding, Emperor Ferdinand I of Austria created Claudine Countess of Hohenstein in her own right. However, the higher-ranking title of Duchess was denied. The Duke and the Countess had 3 children together, one of them being Francis. Claudine died in Austria at only 29 after being thrown from her horse. Her remains were initially interred in the Rede mausoleum, but were later brought to the family crypt. Unfortunately, there is not much known about Claudine's parents. The Rede family has been known since the 13th century and were descendants from the House of Aba. Through her mother's side, Claudine was a descendant of Vlad the monk, brother of the infamous Vlad Dracula. Alexander never remarried after the death of Claudine. In 1863, their children were elevated to the rank of Prince and Princesses of Teck. Alexander outlived Claudine by 44 years, dying in 1885, aged 80. Alexander's parents were Duke Louis of Württemberg and Princess Henriette of Nassau-Weilburg. Louis was born in 1756 and became a general in the army. Briefly, he was even a high-ranking commander in the army of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. but after refusing to fight the Russian troops, he was dismissed from his post. He was firstly married to a Polish noblewoman who divorced him after the treason became public. In 1797, he married Princess Henriette of Nassau-Weilburg. Henriette was a granddaughter of the King of Orange. Together, they had 5 children, the youngest being Alexander. Henriette is known for her extensive social and charitable work. She supported schools, orphanages, and care facilities. Louis died in 1817. Henriette outlived him by 40 years. Mary's mother was Princess Mary Adelaide of Cambridge. She was born in 1833 in the Kingdom of Hanover. From birth, she was a British princess with the style of Royal Highness. Mary Adelaide spent her early years in Hanover. After her cousin Victoria became Queen of the United Kingdom, her family moved back to London. Mary married quite late for her time at 30 years old. She asked her cousin Victoria to grant her husband the style of Royal Highness, but her request was denied. Despite the lack of money, Mary lived an extravagant lifestyle. This forced the family to leave the UK and move abroad. Eventually, the family moved back. Mary then spent her time with charitable work. Mary Adelaide died following an emergency operation in 1897. She's buried next to her husband. Mary Adelaide's parents were Prince Adolphus, the Duke of Cambridge, and Princess Augusta of Hesse-Kassel. Adolphus was born in 1774. He served as Viceroy of Hanover until his elder brother became King of Hanover in 1837. In 1818, he married Princess Augusta of Hesse-Kassel. Augusta was born in 1797 in what is today Germany. The couple were second cousins. Augusta was 20 at the time of her marriage and Adolphus 44. Together they had 3 children, the youngest of them being Mary Adelaide. After their time in Hanover, the couple moved back to the UK, where they resided at Cambridge Cottage, Kew, and later St. James's Palace. Adolphus died in 1850. Augusta outlived him by 39 years. Prince Adolphus's parents were King George III and Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. George came to the throne in 1760 after the death of his grandfather. A suitable consort was found in Princess Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. The 23-year-old George married the 17-year-old Charlotte in 1761. The couple would have 15 children together. George is famous for losing the American colonies in the American War of Independence and for his interest in agriculture and astrology. Charlotte is best remembered for her interest in botanics. She greatly expanded the gardens at Kew Palace and introduced the Christmas tree to the UK. Augusta's parents were Frederick of Hesse-Kassel and Caroline of Nassau-Usingen. The two married in 1786. Frederick was 15 years older than Caroline. She had been an heiress to a family whose male line went extinct. In 1781, Frederick bought Rumpenheim Castle. He therefore became known as the Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel-Rumpenheim. The two had 8 children together. Caroline died in 1823. Frederick lived until 1837. He was the last surviving grandchild of King George II of Great Britain.